A few months ago, I had a very intense and somewhat tearful conversation with a friend about a house that she was thinking about purchasing. You see, a beloved family member of hers had passed away, and the family was finally putting their house up on the market. At the time, the Fed hadn't really raised rates too much, and she'd been saving up, so she already had done the math and knew that she could afford to buy the house. But something just wasn't sitting right in her spirit, so she gave me a call. And I'm really happy that she did, because she was about to do something that I've watched way too many clients do: make a huge purchase based on emotion instead of logic. You see, we've all heard the stories about people that will buy homes or cars, land, jewelry, artwork, businesses, and even expensive animals because they were once owned by someone they loved or admired very much. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with this, there are some significant risks that can come along when you're making these sort of emotional purchases. Like, you may miss some serious red flags that would have stopped you from making that very purchase had you been thinking a little more clearly. Which is why today I'm going to stop and share with you 5 questions to ask, which I asked her before spending big bucks on an emotional buy. Hey dreamers, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tiana Clewis, executive pastor, money coach, and co-founder of a multi-million-dollar consulting firm. I've made it my mission to help Christian women who are trapped in that 9-to-5 grind overcome the money worries that are stopping them from stepping full-time into their God-given calling, like I have. So if you find that your money is becoming a roadblock to you building your business, ministry, or nonprofit full-time, well, hey, come hang out with me. I've got some tips, some tricks, and some biblical strategies that are gonna help you make that shift. And so, yeah, now that you know who I am and what we got going on around here, let's jump into the video. Okay, disclaimer time, all right? These questions are not designed to be formulaic. There's no sequence for how many of them need to be yes or how many need to be no for you to know that you're about to make the right decision. The purpose of these questions is to open your eyes to your true motives, because the reality is that we humans really like to rationalize irrational purchasing decisions. And in my last video, I talked about how I rationalized the purchase of 3 expensive handbags with talks of their classy designs and great workmanship and the ability to use them for years to come. But the real motive behind it was that I was feeling insecure about my dressier outfits because I didn't have purchases that kind of matched the vibe. You see, I rationalized what is essentially an irrational purchase. And we're all guilty of it, which is why I've used these questions with my friend to go beyond the rationalizations and see the truth behind her decision making. And once you know your true motives, you can combine them with the facts to decide for yourself if you're about to make the right call or not. So there's my disclaimer. On to the questions. The first question that I hit her with is this one. Would you be making this purchase if it wasn't for the emotional link? Yeah, I know, I didn't ease into it. But when people are making emotional decisions about money, I've learned that I often need to just kind of jump in the deep end with them to help them start to think more clearly. So I started here because it gave that first initial jolt out of her emotions and into logical thoughts by forcing her to think about the purchase separately from the deceased family member that tied her to it. If not for the emotional tie, she would have normally been thinking about whether she liked the property. She would have been asking whether the sales price was worth it based on her needs, desires, and values. She would have evaluated opportunity costs, i.e. what she would be able to buy or invest in with the money instead. However, when you're emotionally tied to something, you often find yourself ignoring these logical routes of thinking and focusing your energy on how to just make it work. So instead of focusing on the opportunity cost of potentially not being able to pay down, say, credit card debt this month in order to purchase your favorite unsold Mustang, you begin to focus on formulating every plan that you can to ensure the Mustang is in your driveway by next week, like my friend was. Asking, would you be making this purchase if it wasn't for the emotional link, is the great first step to getting your brain going down the logical path. But let me emphasize the words first step. While people do start doing the critical thinking with this question, many people are still so far in the emotional fog that they just can't quite escape. So yeah, your girl's got more questions. For example, my next question is, what are your goals for this purchase? Let me be frank. This question is a total setup for the next set of questions, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But the idea is to get them to start sharing their rationalization for the purchase. In the case of my friend, her rationalization was that she could use the house as an investment property that would then become an additional stream of income. And with this additional income, she could begin to pay down her debt faster and eventually invest more once she actually was debt-free. And that sounds really good. It makes a lot of sense. on the surface. But remember, she's being swayed by emotion, so your girl's gotta make sure she digs deeper. And since I'm emotionally detached from the decision and therefore able to think more logically, I was able to then use other questions to identify and highlight any red flags that she may have missed in her initial rationalization process. Which brings me to the next question. However, before we move on to that question, I need you to go ahead and hit the like button, because you're still here, so you probably like what you're getting. And I also need you to go ahead and hit the big red button down below so that you can follow my channel, because I want to bless you with more goodness. Okay, now you can go move on to the next question. I'm tongue-tied. Question 3 is, can you achieve your goal by making a different move or doing this at a later time? One of the toughest things about these emotional purchases is that they often require us to act quickly because there's some sort of countdown attached. In her case, she was trying to lock in the house before it hit the market and bids started driving the sales price up. In your case, it may be that you're trying to be able to get the car once it goes to auction or before the date of the estate sale comes around. Maybe you're trying to buy the land before the bank takes it back due to property taxes. Whatever the reason is, typically you're having to make this decision quickly and oftentimes before you would have been prepared and feeling ready to make this decision yourself. Or even if we do feel like we're ready, we're having to rewrite our entire game plan for hitting our goal in order to fit this particular purchase into the picture. Either way, this sense of urgency causes us to fear missing out on an opportunity, prompting us to shortchange our logical decision-making process. In fact, this is a common sales tactic used by retailers, service-based companies, and car dealers in order to get you to hurry up and buy. If they can instill in you the fear of missing out on your opportunity, then they can get you to ignore the part of your brain that would have talked you out of the purchase had you been thinking logically and identified all the red flags. So this is why I wanted to ask this question. It helps you to evaluate whether you're truly missing out on an opportunity. And if you are missing out on this opportunity, is it really going to be the only or even the best opportunity that's going to come your way? In her case, the answer was yes. Once we started talking about the second mortgage, the renovation and repair costs on the property to make it rentable, costs to maintain the property like landscaping and other considerations, this second stream of income wouldn't have made her enough money or in cash or equity to justify the additional workload. This becomes especially clear when we consider that in a couple of years, she would have had enough money saved to buy a property that didn't require so many repairs. Plus, she would already be debt-free, so she would have more disposable income to invest in said property or another venture. And these are all things that she hadn't considered in her haste to figure out how to make it work. The reality is, if she hadn't been trying to just make it work, she would have realized that she could hit her same goal just by waiting a little bit. So, if you need to take your mind off of the looming deadline and you are struggling to focus on the facts, just ask yourself the question, can I achieve my goal by making a different move or doing this at a later time? Question 4 is this: are you purchasing a memorial or an investment? This question came out because of my observations while she was answering the third question. You see, as we were talking about the renovations recommended by the realtor to help get the property ready to rent, she kept vetoing the proposed renovations, even though not doing the renovations will reduce the likelihood that she'd be able to rent out the property at a really good rate. The more that she did this, the more it became clear that the idea of changing the property bothered her because of the memories that they held in relation to the family member. The truth is that she wasn't really buying an investment property like she thought she was. Because if she was buying an investment property, she wouldn't have a problem making necessary changes to make the property profitable. When you're investing in a house for renting, you don't mind changing carpets and knocking down or painting walls, redoing cabinetry and revamping landscaping to meet the needs of your tenants. But when you're buying a memorial, you don't want to change anything. So I asked the question and she got super quiet because the truth of what she was really doing punched her square in the chest. Now, this question may not apply if we're talking about things like artwork, cars, or jewelry because they aren't really intended to be changed or customized too much once they've been purchased. But if you're talking land, houses, or family businesses, this is super relevant because these items are investments that should be growing your wealth. And sometimes achieving that growth requires making some changes. So if you're not willing to change things around once you make the purchase, you're likely purchasing a memorial, which then leads to a follow-up question. Are the memories you're trying to preserve worth the opportunity cost? The reality is that if you make these purchases, there are other things you can't do with the money. Like you can't save for an emergency. You can't add it to your 401k. You can't use it to pay off student loans. You can't use it to invest in the S&P 500. And you certainly can't add it to your index universal life insurance policy like the rich folks. And while wealthy people, they can actually afford to disregard these opportunity costs, most of us can't. Especially when we're doing it to preserve memories that are already in our mind and our heart. Look, even if someone else buys the house and totally renovates it, your memories of running around the backyard with your cousins still live in your mind. Even if someone goes and repaints your favorite aunt's Mustang from black to pale blue, you are still going to remember riding down the highway with her belting out your favorite song at the top of your lungs. And even if that land in your family is divided up and replaced by a bunch of really ugly condos, you will still have the memories of hunting for quail on the property with your old man. No one can take these memories from you. So whether you make the purchase or not, you're not going to miss out on the warm fuzzies that you get from those memories because they will always be close to you. Don't allow the fear of losing something that can't be taken from you cause you to make a big purchase that only becomes a memorial to those very memories and a big drain on your pockets. All right, my fifth and final question to my friend was this: what would that person actually want you to do? At this point, we'd already figured out that the purchase she was trying to make just didn't make the most financial sense. And it really was her trying to create a memorial to that family member. But there was still a little bit of a kind of a nagging guilt that she had in there about letting their house go. However, when she told me about the love that she shared with this person, I began to question whether they would actually want her to take on this financial burden. After all, this family member seemed like a very reasonable, level-headed individual who had tried in their life to make decisions that would benefit the people they loved. And having my friend saddle herself with a second mortgage and new landlord duties in order to buy this house that would only generate maybe a couple of extra $100 a month, it just didn't seem like something that that family member would want for them. So I asked the question, and that was the moment when she finally decided that buying the house would have been the wrong decision. Because she agreed with me. She realized that her family member wouldn't want her to take on that extra financial burden, but would want her to use her money in a way that would actually benefit her household. The family member would want her to spend more time at home with her kiddo, not taking on duties of a landlord on top of all the other stuff she had going. And the family member would absolutely want her to move forward with life in a way that she truly enjoyed instead of locking herself to the past just to cling to memories that would never leave her anyway. And the reality is that if you walk through this, you may find that the same thing is true for your major purchase as well. Would they have wanted you to spend the money? Would they have wanted you to take a potentially bad investment just because it used to belong to them? If they loved you and they weren't total narcissists, the answer is probably not. And when you combine that reality with all of the facts and thought processes that were revealed through the other questions, you'll likely realize that you probably shouldn't be making this purchase just as my friend did. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not saying that anyone going through these questions is always going to come up with an answer of don't do it, because that's just not true. Sometimes it's an absolute yes once you've had a chance to really think through it all, but at least you can make the decision knowing that you really, truly did think it through. At the end of the day, I simply want you to be confident that you're making a decision that you most likely won't regret later. So if you can go beyond the emotions and really think logically, you are on the right path, and I think it's going to end pretty well with you. But hey, you know me, those are just my thoughts. What do you think? What did you think about the questions? Did they make sense? Did they make you emotional? Did they help you stop and think logically? Let me know your thoughts, good, bad, and ugly, down in the comments. And then once you're done leaving your comments, if you find that you need some more insight from me to help you make a decision about a big purchase or some other money move you want to make, well, I can help you with that too. Head to my website at tianabclewis.com/breakthrough and book a free 30-minute strategy session with moi. In that session, we are going to talk about where you are, where you want to be, and custom strategies that you can use to bridge that gap for you and your family. And all it's going to cost you is 30 minutes of your time. So take advantage of this additional free advice by going to tianabclewis.com/breakthrough and booking some time directly on my calendar. Finally, before you go, don't forget to let me know that you found this video useful by hitting the thumbs up button and subscribing to my channel by clicking the big red button below. Be sure to hit the bell so that you're notified each week when I drop brand new money tips and biblical strategies that are going to help you bust through your financial barriers so you can step big, bad, and boldly into your God-given calling full time. Now with that, your girl is feeling a little goofy right now and a little loopy, so I'm gonna go put on my PJs, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Bye-bye.